Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's workshop, which is hosted by Tawana Lowery. Tawana Lowery is a story sharing coach and expert. She's also a best-selling author, international keynote speaker, and nonprofit founder. Drawing from 35 years of successful corporate leadership with numerous Fortune 500 companies, plus 21 years of leadership and business coaching. Tawana helps female small business owners, solopreneurs, and coaches get noticed, gain more clients, and grow bigger faster by turning their personal story into a magnetic message that connects and converts with ease. So thank you so much for hosting today, Tawana. And we are looking forward to the presentation today.
That's awesome. Kay, thank you so much. Really appreciate the opportunity. So just wanted to say I'm excited to share all this with you guys. And, I am a best-selling author, and I've got several years experience with leadership coaching, marketing and sales, and all those kinds of things. And just have been so fortunate to be featured on multiple media outlets talking about empowerment for women empowerment and story sharing and so on and so forth. But today we have three goals. We're going to learn a lot about story sharing. We're also going to have fun, and we're going to take action. So we just talked about where everybody lives. And I want to make sure that you stay till the end, because I do have a free gift for you. So you don't want to miss out. So I want to start out by just saying that, story sharing really is your superpower to get noticed, gain clients, and grow bigger, faster. And so the question I get quite often is, Tawana, what is story sharing? What is this all about? And so what the research tells us is that story sharing is a strategic approach to marketing, right? And it's the kind of marketing that fosters meaningful engagement. It humanizes your marketing, so people don't feel like they're just a number or someone's just trying to hustle them. And it aligns your story with what matters to your target audience. And we also know from the research that story sharing, some people call it story branding, is basically the same thing. It's the most effective way to help other people consider what's possible for them. And it allows you to communicate with greater impact. And it also positions you as the trusted guide to help them achieve their ideal outcome. So look, here's the ugly truth. And, a person that cares about you is going to tell you the ugly truth. No matter how great your product or service is, without story, the market is going to see you as a boring commodity. And not only that, but you're going to be invisible. You're going to be forgettable. And your ideal clients are going to choose the competition, which means your growth is going to be slow and frustrating. Now, look, I think you deserve better than that. And so here's the beautiful truth. With story sharing, professional story sharing, you're going to elevate above that competition and do it effortlessly. You're going to be distinguished from the crowd. You're going to gain the memorable attention that you deserve, and you're going to attract your ideal client. And here's the thing I love is story sharing is the thing that's going to help you overcome the objections that your ideal client is walking around with. It's in their head. They may not verbalize it, but believe you me, they have it. And what I love about story sharing is it overcomes those objections without you having to do it overtly. And it inspires them to want to work with you. And, the easiest way I can explain this is that story sharing is that perfect connection. It's like a beautiful bridge between your product and service and your ideal client. So it's just too important to ignore. So let's talk about what the research tells us about story sharing, because some people say, hey, this is just woo-woo, and what is really all about. And there is research behind this. So here's what we know from the research, that 92% of consumers want to hear a brand's story. Now, that doesn't just necessarily mean the company that you represent. For those who are in direct marketing, so to speak, they want to know your story because you're the person that they're going to sign up with or do business with or engage. We also know that 68% of consumers, that's a huge number. Think about this. 68% of consumers say the story is what influenced their purchasing decision. Now, you guys, this is a big, big number, too big to ignore. So you need to think about story sharing tilting the scales in your favor. And we also know that it elevates trust. I got to be honest with you, we are in a trust recession right now because of AI. It's unregulated because of fake news and also because of the lack of meaningful connection. So how many of you feel like that we are in that trust recession, right? And so this is why story sharing is more important now than ever, because it builds that connection of trust between you and your ideal client. But we also know from the research that 55% of consumers say they remember a story more than a list of facts and stats. You've heard the adage, facts tell, but stories sell. And this is absolutely the truth. And here's why. Because our brains are 22 times more likely to remember a story than those lists and stats and facts, because our brains just love stories. It activates all part of the brain: language, emotion, sensory, motor, and so forth. So how many of you have maybe gone to a seminar or you've listened to a sermon or whatever, and you're getting a little weary, it's feeling a little bit boring, but as soon as the speaker says, hey, I want to tell you a story, you perk up, right? We all do that. And it's because our brains are wired to love stories. So here's what I say: lean in hard here, because you're going with the flow of how people think, how they feel, how they make decisions. In other words, don't swim upstream when you have so many things working in your advantage through story sharing. Now, this is huge. This is probably my favorite stat. We know that story sharing builds massive loyalty as well. And when I was in corporate, every year we would have this thing called the Net Promoter Score. And the Net Promoter Score was basically how many of our customers would refer us to their network, right? And so we loved that score because the higher it was, the more we knew we were doing a great job. So you got to consider that story sharing is also kind of like your personal Net Promoter Score, in that it's going to help you build retention. And especially if you are wanting more predictable revenue and you're wanting to keep your team together and have people have repeat business, then to have those retention rates move from 5 to 10% all the way to 65 to 70, that is a massive shift. That's not small. And so this is something you really need to pay attention to, and you can have this through story sharing. Okay, I want to move into some examples of great story sharing. And the first one is, you may recognize this lady. Her name is Jamie Kern Lima. She actually lived in Northern California. She was a news broadcaster for many years, but she had this terrible skin problem called rosacea. And she was so mortified by it. Some of you may have read her book, but she could not find a makeup that would hide her skin problem while she was under those hot studio lights. Finally, she quit her job and she said, I'm going to create a makeup for women like me, or women that don't feel confident in their skin. And so after several years of research and creation, she finally landed a spot on QVC. And this was beautiful. She told her story on live television, took off all of her makeup. Then she put her makeup back on, and within hours, she sold out. It was so successful, they had her back on QVC 1,000 times. I mean, think about that, 1,000 times. She eventually sold that little thing, that little company she started out of a story, for $1.2 billion. She sold it to L'Oreal. So look, it all started from a story. You may be familiar with this gentleman, Blake. He is the founder of Tom's Shoes. Well, when he went on a hiking trip to Argentina several years ago, he noticed that many of the children did not have shoes, and it caused a lot of problems for them, not only disease, but other things. And so he came back to America and said, hey, I am going to start a company, and for a shoe company, and for every pair of shoes we sell, we're going to donate to children in needy countries, so that they can, have a better life for themselves. Well, the word got out. Yes, they make a great product. Yes, they have a lot of competition, but people chose him because of his story. And since 2008, this company, which was started from nothing basically, has donated 100 million pairs of shoes because of his story. And the last one I want to share with you is this beautiful lady, Madam C.J. Walker. You may or may not be familiar with her, but she was one of America's first self-made millionaires as far as female millionaires is concerned. Now, do you think possibly in the 1900s she had a few things working against her? I mean, in that time of history, all women had a lot of things working against them, but she especially did. And yet, in spite of it, because of her story of her hair loss and the product that she developed to remedy that, she went door to door to door telling her story. By today's standards, this woman would be a billionaire, and it all started from a story. So I hope that's inspirational for you. I know it's very inspirational for me because great things can happen from just one story. So let's talk about the components of an effective story. Well, the first thing we want to notice is that when you're sharing an effective story, it needs to be authentic. Like, you don't need to make it up. It needs to be an authentic, real story about you and your life. Now, this is an example of someone who did not follow that guideline, and it did not go very well for her. So don't know if you remember this woman. Her name is Susan Powter. She was a fitness guru in America in the 1990s, and she had this brand called Stop the Insanity. And she was all about helping women get fit and lose weight and so forth by following her game plan, her framework. She claimed to have lost 133 pounds doing exactly what she taught. The only problem is it came out later while she was at the pinnacle of her career that she actually did not lose all of her weight that way. She did liposuction and plastic surgery to lose her weight and get in shape. So you can imagine what happened to her business basically overnight. So the message is be authentic and be real. You don't have to fake it. That's not what's going to attract your ideal client. So the second component of an effective story is being memorable. In other words, we want you to be unforgettable. And here's why. Because the things that make you unforgettable are the ways that you touch people's hearts. So you want to keep your story short, simple, and specific. Like, you don't want to go on and on and on and on, but you do want to touch their heart. You want to share life lessons or some core values and things like that that you have gained along the way. And especially the way to be unforgettable is to paint pictures with your words. So if you're telling about a journey that you went on, maybe, it was an overcomer type of situation that you experienced. It's the why behind your business. It's some kind of difficulty that you overcame. Share those things, but don't drag it out. Just get to the point. Think about your ideal client as you're sharing this. Make sure you're touching their heart. In other words, don't be afraid to be vulnerable, because that's what's going to appeal to them. And then, like I said, share some life lessons. Here are the key things I learned. Here are the core values that I build my business on. Share those things because it's extremely important to your ideal client. And then the third component of an effective story is being relatable. Okay, so I have a question. Let's say a 15-year-old high school student came to you and said, I have this great coaching program, and it's all about helping couples have great marriages. How many of you would sign up for this person's coaching program? The answer is nobody would. Why? Because they're not relatable. They don't know anything about it. So what you want to make sure that you're talking about in your story is those things that you can share in common with your ideal client. So relatability equals credibility. In other words, you want to share the similarities, maybe the things that you've overcome that they're trying to overcome. And in doing that, you want to be advocating for their dreams. In other words, you could say things like, I remember what it felt like to, want to have my dream home, but feel like it was a million years away. I know what it felt like to want to recover my health, but I didn't know how to make it happen. In other words, you're being relatable to them, advocating for the desires in their heart. And then you want to throw rocks at their enemies, right? Because we all have those enemies. Like I didn't have enough money. I didn't have enough time. I didn't have any answers. And we know those are the kind of things that keep people stuck. But you want to help them know that you can relate to them where they are in their journey. And not only that, that you can help them get to the other side. So make sure that you are also relatable. So it's authentic, memorable, and relatable. Okay, let's take a minute. And I want you to just jot down, and unless you're driving, you can't do that, but just jot down real quick what you think makes you authentic, memorable, or relatable. And there's no right or wrong answer here. It's just, what do you, from your life story, from your journey, from the things that you've experienced, what do you feel like makes you authentic, memorable, and relatable? And if you want to drop that in the chat, Kay can read those out. If you want to, you don't have to, but it could be something like, hey, I went through a bankruptcy and I overcame it, or I was raised in poverty and I, found a way to build sustainable wealth, any of those kinds of things. But look, this is the gold here. This is gold for your ideal client to know these things. So does anyone want to share? Kay, do you want to read anything from the chat?
Let me go ahead and unmute. I actually dropped something in the chat myself, not seeing anything else, but something that I find reflecting that makes me relatable, clairvoyance and an outer body experience is something that I experience that I feel like other people do too, but we don't talk much about it.
Okay. Yeah. That's awesome. Does anybody else want to share anything in the chat about this? If not, no worries.
You're not seeing anything else in the chat for now.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on. And then let's talk about story sharing frameworks. So there's two primary story sharing frameworks. So how many of you either read this book or saw this movie? It's The Pursuit of Happiness. So this is the classic rags to riches story sharing framework. It's a beautiful framework, and a lot of people can relate to that. However, the second one is the one that is the framework that seems to resonate the most with people, and it's the hero's journey or the heroine's journey. And so I put Star Wars there because, as you know, Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia were both kind of called into a dilemma, so to speak. And through their perseverance and through the help of their friends and through their mentors and all these kinds of things, they overcame the obstacles. So have you experienced something like that, right? And this is great because everybody has gone through something. And so to know that you have also really, really relates and connects with your ideal client. So the question for you would be, what do you feel like with the way you share your story now? Is it more of a rags to riches, or is it more of a hero or heroine's journey type of a story? And again, no right or wrong answer. It's just nice to know, kind of where you land, or maybe you're not sharing it at all. So where do you think you would fall into this framework? You can just drop it in the chat or take yourself off mute and say whatever. Heroine's journey. Okay. Anybody else? Anyone else want to drop a note in the chat? Again, I can't really see it that well. Mm-hmm. Well, I can tell you mine is the heroine's journey. That's what I experienced, and that's how I built an incredibly successful coaching business, is from sharing it. Okay, so let's talk about some common styles of an effective story. And something we see quite often, especially when we're going to some kind of seminar or a workshop where they're wanting us to know about insurance or investing or real estate or money management, things like that. A lot of times the speakers are just sharing information. They're not really talking about a personal story, although if they did, I think they would be a thousand times more effective, but they're mostly just sharing the stats, the facts, and all that kind of thing. So that's one story sharing style that many of us have been exposed to. But another one is the inspirational story sharing style. So maybe you have attended something like that when there's been a big fundraiser, either at your house of worship or in your community. They're trying to raise money for building a park, or they're going to have a fun run or whatever. And so somebody will stand up and get everybody inspired and get them to want to volunteer and support the cause. So that's one style. But the most effective style of story sharing is called the transformational style. Now, this is what you really want to aim for because it inspires and makes people want to take action with you. In other words, sign up for your program, work with you, buy your products, whatever. And it inspires a strong commitment too. And the transformational story sharing style is also the one that's the most memorable. All right, so real quick, let's just check in. And again, no right or wrong answers here. But what do you feel like is your current story sharing style? Are you more just talk about the facts, the stats, give them the information, and in that kind of approach? Or are you just trying to inspire them to feel good about something and hoping that that will make them want to work with you? Or are you helping them visualize a transformation? Are you sharing a personal transformation possibly that you went through and the why behind why you are in the business that you're in? So just, drop it in the chat, and whichever one you feel like you are primarily doing. And there's no right or wrong answer here. It's just a way to kind of check in. What we want to do, though, is we want to make sure that we are trying to migrate to that transformational story sharing style as much as possible. Any comments? Transformational? Okay, awesome. Okay. Well, if you're not in that particular lane, then I would say at least be thinking about how you can move from just information or just inspiration into transformation. Okay, so again, please stay till the end. I have a free gift for you, and I don't want you to miss out on that. So let's move into now. I want to talk about the top 3 mistakes that I see most small business owners make and how you can avoid it. So the first one is being too vague. So how many times have you gone to a networking meeting or a summit or a meetup and you hear this question, tell me what you do? And the person is so vague that you still don't know, like, I can't connect the dots. Well, let me tell you what that sounds like when you're being vague. So let's say that someone invited you to go to a concert and you buy their ticket and you show up to the concert and the only person on the stage is the drummer. Now the drummer knows what song they are playing the beat to, but you don't. And so they're up there drumming away and they're just having a great old time and they're just thinking you're into it, right? And you're sitting there going, what song are you playing? Well, that's exactly what it sounds like to our ideal audience when we're vague. It basically sounds like we're playing the drums because we know the song that we're playing to, right? But the other person doesn't. So you do not want to be vague. Sometimes we get in our own head because we're so close to what we're doing that we forget the other person really hasn't heard it. So here's what I want you to realize. Clarity equals clients. So get out of your head, get out of being the practitioner of the great thing that you do, and don't make your ideal audience guess. In other words, when they say, what do you do? Show up with a whole band, play the whole song, in other words, so that they can be crystal clear on understanding how you serve and possibly why they need to choose you to help them get what it is that they're wanting to achieve. All right, so don't be vague. The second mistake I see a lot of business owners make is they ramble. So when they're like, what do you do? Tell me what you do. Or they'll talk on incessantly. You have possibly been there at a network meeting or whatever, and 2 minutes into it, they're still talking and you're sitting there going, God, I have no idea what you do. And they're rambling and rambling and rambling. Well, let me tell you how you need to think about that. Rambling equals gambling. So when you're rambling about what you do, you're gambling away those ideal clients, you're gambling away great opportunities, and you're gambling away the growth of your business. So do not ramble. Keep it simple, keep it short, because quite honestly, you've got maybe 10 seconds to get their attention to make them want to listen to the next 10 seconds. So if you think about a 30-second window, you got to nail it in the first 10 seconds. And if you're not, then you've already lost them. Okay, the third mistake that I see a lot of small business owners make is they're confusing to their ideal client. And they're trying to be everything to everybody. So for instance, if I said, so tell me what you do. And they said, hey, well, I'm a financial coach. I help people get educated about creative ways to invest their money. But I'm also doing real estate. I do that on the weekends. And then I do health and wellness coaching as well. So why would I pick this person for anything? Even if I needed to say, I wanted somebody to help me with health and wellness. Here's why I wouldn't pick them, and probably the same reason you wouldn't pick them. It's because if they are that divided in what they do, I don't know that they're going to be committed to helping me. And so here's what you want to make sure you're doing. Rather than operating with fear that if I don't say I'm doing 3 things, I'm going to miss out. Actually, you are going to miss out by saying that you're doing 3 things. You need to make a decision on what you want to be known for most, right? Now, yeah, okay, so maybe you do sell real estate, but is that what you want to be known for the most? And if it isn't, then don't bring it up. And here's why. If you don't make a decision on this, other people can't make a decision on choosing you or working with you. Okay, so quick question. Where do you feel like you can improve? And maybe you don't need to improve anywhere. Are you being too vague, possibly? Are you showing up playing the drums and your ideal client is like, I don't know what song you're playing? Are you rambling? Do you feel like you have to go on and on and on and on for 2-3 minutes, but you've already lost them after the first 10 seconds? Possibly, are you being confusing? Are you worried that if you don't say you do 3 things, you're going to miss out, when what you're actually doing is missing out because you're being confusing? So just think about it, kind of a gut check here. Where do you feel like you can improve? And if you want to drop it in the chat, please feel free to do so. Again, no right or wrong answer, no judgment here. This is all about just helping you get better as a small business owner. Okay, so a common question that I get about story sharing is, Tawana, I'm not sure story sharing is something that's going to really work for my business. Like, does it only work for certain types of products and services and things like that? Well, let me tell you what my experience has been doing what I do. Story sharing is about all industries. It doesn't really matter. It's industry agnostic. And just as an example, I coach right now, I'm coaching people in 5 countries and across all different types of industries. So some of the industries include this, for instance, Tora. She's a licensed mental health therapist and coach. And she worked with me to help get her brand messaging and her story together when she started her business. And as she said, before she even finished the program, she was already booking those high ticket clients into her program. So that's in the mental health space. And then I worked with Ashley, and Ashley was a Mary Kay director. And working with me, she was able to achieve a lifelong goal that she'd had in her business. And you see there, she was able to get her car and also to help inspire her team in ways that they can share their story. So there's a direct marketing type of industry, but also I worked with this lady named Lee, a wonderful woman. She actually lives in Northern California also. And she's a health and wellness coach, but she wanted to get on more stages, be interviewed in podcasting and so forth and things like that. So she hired me and we worked together, and she got completely stage ready in the particular lane that she was in. And then also this lady, this beautiful woman, Veronica, and she has an online e-commerce business. And working with me, it was just a huge game changer to help her scale her business to new levels. And then Jess is another example. She was a chief technical officer, and she started her own business and became a techpreneur. And she and I worked together to help pull her story together so that she could make sure she was connecting with her ideal clients each and every time. So, the other thing I want to just help you think about here is that story sharing is also a way that we build legacy. Because look, it's great to build wealth, and I say go do it as much as you possibly can, but we can't take it with us, right? So, but if we can build wealth while we're here and leave a legacy for others that inspires them to help us build community, then that's also a wonderful byproduct of story sharing. And so let me share with you real quick about someone who did exactly that. This lady's name is Candace Leitner. And in 1980, her 13-year-old daughter was killed by a hit and run drunk driver. And in the midst of her horrific grief and agony, she turned her daughter's bedroom into an office. And that's where she launched an organization called Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And it was so impactful. This lady's mission to share her story and share her daughter's story changed legislation in multiple countries. And 45 years later, they are still doing amazing things, not only for being under the influence of alcohol, but doing drug rehab and all these types of things, and getting different legislations across different countries to have like a zero tolerance for intoxicated or drug influence driving. So she has left an amazing legacy, and it was all born from her story. So look, these folks are legacy builders. Jamie Kern Lima, Madam C.J. Walker, and of course, Candace Leitner. All these folks were legacy builders because of their story. Yes, they built, massive wealth, but they also left a legacy. And so I just say, why not you? You can do the very same thing. You can build massive wealth, but you can also leave a legacy. So another common question that I get a lot on story sharing is, hey, Tawana, I'm already sharing my customer stories. Isn't that enough? Why do I need to share a story? Well, look, you need to get all the customer testimonials you can get. I think they're all great. But just keep in mind, that's the external validation of how great your product and service is. But your story is the internal magnetism that communicates the why behind what you're doing. And it's that emotional connection that you're going to make with those ideal clients. It's going to turn browsers and tire kickers into buyers. And think of it like this. Your ideal client isn't going to work with that other client. Yes, you want the testimonials, but they're going to work with you. And so your story is a non-negotiable, in my opinion. You really need to make sure that you are leaning in on sharing your story in a way that's going to attract your ideal client. And look, let me just leave you with a couple of thoughts. You really are one story away, just one story away from attracting your dream client without chasing them. Because look, we don't want to go chasing clients. The chasing route is burnout, and we don't want to do that. But you're also one story away from sharing your message with complete clarity and confidence. Because when you're clear you're confident, and you're one story away from that. But you're also one story away from elevating your true value, like positioning yourself as a premium brand. Your story is the thing that helps you do that, and connecting and converting with ease without the stress and the worry, and enjoying predictable income for your business. You're only one story away from that. So here is the final thought I want to leave you with, that story sharing is your superpower. That's you right there. I want you to see yourself right there in the red cape. It is your superpower to get noticed, gain clients, grow bigger faster, and enjoy the success that you deserve. So I want to offer you the gift that I promised, and here it is. I am offering you to enjoy a free strategy call with me. It's something that's valued at $200 normally, but I'm offering it to everyone on this call totally free.